Such was the condition of Pakistan's economy at its inception. As per many international news agencies like Time magazine, Pakistan was an economic wreck. At that time, Pakistan was among the poorest countries in the world. Rich in natural resources, country virtually had no industries to process those resources and no infrastructure. But by 1960s, Pakistan's GDP was among the leading GDPs in the world, just behind the United States. In 1948, Pakistan government realized that it produced 75% of the world's jute production, but there was no single mill in Pakistan to process all that jute. Such a condition was followed in many industries like cotton, sugarcane, tobacco, and etc. Policies decided in 1948 enabled the country to achieve industrial growth of 23.6% in the next 10 years. Although during those years, there was hardly any growth in agriculture sector and the country had to import even the basic commodities in agriculture sector. In this video, we will discuss the exchange rate, trade policies and industrialization process between 1947 to 1958. Thank you so much and enjoy the video.
In Indian subcontinent, the region now known as Pakistan, that is Punjab, Sindh, Balochistan, and WFP, was considered the breadbasket as this area produced most of the raw materials such as cotton, tobacco, sugarcane, and jute, etc. In 1949, most of the countries of the world were devaluing their currencies. However, Pakistan didn't devalue its currency, and there are some advantages as well as disadvantages for Pakistan. Pakistan started anti-India narrative, but unfortunately this concept was failed. Although imports as well as exports increased due to some reason, one is international currency devaluation and the other is Korean War. Korean War was the major advantage for Pakistan because people think that Korean War would trigger World War III so that they start purchasing and holding raw material in their warehouses. Moreover, post-Korean War helped Pakistan in industrial revolution as exports got expensive and thus it was more feasible to invest in the industry after pulling investment from trading.
Now we will look at the beginning of industrialization process in Pakistan, which began when trading became difficult for merchants following the collapse of Korean boom in 1952, which meant falling export prices and deteriorating balance of payments, along with strict controls and restrictions placed on trade by the government. The merchants saw this as an opportunity to reallocate their resources to the in-country production of consumer goods rather than the less profitable and more restrictive way of income through trading. From 1953 to 1964, Pakistan's imports were regulated by introduction of a new trade policy that had three major aspects. Firstly, overvaluation of Pakistani rupee so more capital goods could be imported easily to push industrialization. The use of quantitative controls on import for price regulation of consumer and other goods were also imposed. There were also different structures of tariffs on imports and exports were introduced, especially on jute and cotton. The government promoted industrialization through two different approaches. Number one, which had a minor role, was taxation. The government opted for a cascading direct structure, which meant lower tariffs on intermediate and capital goods. There were strict controls placed on imports of luxury and other consumer goods. The access to capital goods and industrial raw materials was made easy. Secondly, there was import licensing, which played a major role in the quick shift from trading to industrialization. The quantitative controls played an important role in setting prices of goods. It incentivized the merchants to reallocate their capital resources faster than any other policy. Investments by merchants and saving sectors were made so investors and entrepreneurs could reinvest in profitable manufacturing industries. There was an income increase for saving sector of economy as well as the merchants who had previously amassed profits from the Korean boom. This table shows the difference in the duty structures imposed on the different types of goods from the period of 1955 to the period of 1964. Here we can see that the duties on the essentials, luxuries and semi-luxuries increased very steeply, whereas the duties on the raw materials for consumption and capital goods had a little to no increase at all. The capital goods, consumer durables also had a slight increase in the custom duties. However, on the machinery and equipment, there is little to no increase, which promoted industrialization.
The consequences of the exchange rate and trade policies adopted by Pakistan is fairly clear. The type of productive policy made in Pakistan can be put simply as produce anything that can be reasonably produced domestically, and the second one is once production has started domestically, ban imports of competing goods as to say foreign exchange. The economic strategy in 1950s and 1960s was import substituting industrialization. A country with no productive capacity in manufacturing and have payment problem will be tempered to follow a policy of placing restrictions on the imports of non-essential goods. First, given the scarcity of foreign exchange. Second, there is no appeal to the idea restricting the flow of imported consumer goods. Industries are established which depend on imported supplies, and there is less incentive to develop local capital goods. Domestic resources are valued more highly in saving than in earning foreign exchange, which result as countries started finding itself with productive capacity heavily dependent on imported resources of supply, with no new means of earning foreign exchange. Import substitution progressed easily in those industries that have highest production, for example, primary agriculture, raw materials such as cotton and leather. The 1950s was larger for consumer goods than for most intermediate and investment related goods, and also the import licensing scheme seemed to be a thoughtful policy measure which affect relative prices and hence patterns of industrialization.
Now coming to the end result, there was a rapid growth in agriculture manufacturing industry in 1950. Jute and cotton was the main industry, and by the end of 1950s Pakistan was in the position to produce export surplus. It was showing the success of the import substitution industrialization policy. It was fact that all the growth that took place in manufacturing between 1951 to 1955 was because of import substitution policy. The complete dominance of the policy in the first half of 1950s was reduced a little in the second half but still accounted for 20% of growth in manufacturing and export responsibility of 25%. Moreover, substitution policy was showing shift in consumer good industry and contributed less than half of the growth after that period. Reason for 1950 growth rate was due to the fact that the country started with a low base in the first place. Return on investment in early 1950s ranged from 50 to 100%, and that's why private sector respond willingly. Then it was reduced to 20 to 50% in the later decades. There was strong economic incentives on becoming an industrial entrepreneur. With the end of Korean boom, international trade, especially import, suddenly become unattractive, and this is the reason industry development became the only choice.
In the 1950s, most of the promising industrialists were traders who were well established. Almost 3,000 individual firms were operating in Pakistan. Out of those 3,000, only 7 individual families held 25% of all the private industrial assets in United Pakistan. Apart from the private sector, state institutions in the field of credit like Pakistan Industrial Credit and Investment Corporation (PICIC) and Pakistan Industrial Finance Corporation (PIFCO) provided funds for large firms, whereas Pakistan Industrial and Development Corporation (PIDC) helped industries and areas in early period of industrialization which were ignored by the private sectors. Coming towards the industrial capital, the initial build-up in the industrial capital was largely due to the payments paid by the agriculture sector to the industrial sector and by urban consumers. Agriculture raw materials were supplied at cheap prices, and in return, high prices were paid for the manufacturing consumer goods. In 1955, devaluation was done in order to compensate the balance of agriculture exports, along with giving priority to the agriculture sector. Industrialization played an important role in the formation of East Pakistan. The unfair policies of Ayub Khan are held responsible for the formation of East Pakistan, but there are other factors that played a major role. For example, cease of trade between India and Pakistan in 1949 played a negative impact on East Pakistan as 80% of its trade was with India. Also in 1950s, government institutions concentrated more on the development of West Pakistan by allotting 66% of investment and 62% of foreign loans to West Pakistan respectively. Lastly, East Pakistan played an important role throughout the process of industrialization, which was highly concentrated in West Pakistan through the transfer of its resources.
Despite of all the negative consequences and the criticism of the economic policies of the government, it would not be wrong to say that with the stroke of luck and the policies introduced by the government, the process of industrialization in Pakistan kick-started. This all happened after the Korean boom's fall, as the overvaluation of rupees made the exports more expensive. The government policies, on the other hand, also favored the industrialization, as the duties on raw materials and raw materials and the capital goods would not increase relative to the consumer goods and luxury goods. This also acted as an incentive for the merchants to set up industries in Pakistan to meet the excessive local demand. That is all from our side. Thank you so much.